Hi there. My name is Tonya Williams. I'm the executive director of Real World Film Festival, Real World Screen Institute, and you have just joined us here for our webinar, Secrets of Creative and Successful Crowdfunding Campaign for Film. And I don't know if you realize this, but crowdfunding has been around for a very long time. I would say since 1997, but we've only really been executing it in a great deal just in the last few years. So we have two filmmakers with us today, two successful crowdfunding filmmakers, and I wanted them to be able to share their experiences. We have Gloria Young Kim, and Gloria recently directed, wrote, and produced her first feature, Queen of the Morning Calm, which premiered at the Whistler Film Festival and won numerous accolades. She's directed and written multiple episodes for television for major networks, earned a CSA nomination for Best Direction, and she's currently developing a thriller series titled Gone. And we've got Sharon Lewis. Sharon is an award-winning director and showrunner. Her debut Afro-punk feature film, Brown Girl Begins, has been nominated for 2 Canadian Screen Awards, and her work has screened on major networks such as HBO, CBC, Discovery, Hulu. Sharon was a successful actress, writer, and host before, and she has studied political science at University of Toronto and earned a degree in directing at UCLA. So we've got two very accomplished women with us, and we're really happy to have you here. So to kick it off, actually, I see Sharon's mute is off, so let's start with her. To kick it off,
Tonya.
Why, Sharon? Why did you go in this? Did you try the traditional avenue, or was crowdfunding something you wanted to, explore?
Yeah, no, crowdfunding was not something I wanted to explore. I wanted to do what most white male directors get to do. In my experience in Canada, is they write a film, they go to Telefilm goes, oh, that's so interesting. Another story about a white man coming of age in Muskoka. let's fund it. But that's not what happened. 15 years ago, Damon and I brought it, Damon De Oliveira, who's a very experienced producer, we brought it to CBC, the project, 15 years ago. They said, oh, this is interesting, and they were going to give it development money. Then there was a whole change at CBC, and it got washed away. Telefilm said no. The feedback constantly was, Black people don't want genre. Black people don't watch science fiction. So I kept picking it up and putting it down and picking it up and putting it down. And then finally, Black Panther was coming out. And I kept hearing the rumblings of Black Panther, and I thought maybe now is the time again. So I picked it up in 2013, took it to Telefilm. We got second place in the Telefilm Pitch This, still wouldn't fund it. So I applied to the Arts Council grants. We got some Arts Council grants. We didn't have enough money. And I was like, we're going to make this film. We are going to make this film. So that's how we came to crowdfunding. I tried every avenue I could. We all pay our taxes. I wanted a part of that public funding. And then I said, well, let me take it to the community. So I scaled the film down. And the first thing I did was I did some research, and I decided to go with Indiegogo instead of Kickstarter. There's 2 main platforms. I went with Indiegogo because it felt like it had a little bit more steam back then in 2015 in Canada. And then the second thing I did was I hired a social media coordinator, crowd campaign funder, because I knew I would not be able to do this full time on my own. It is a lot of work, and I wanted it to be successful.
No.
So then I'll let Gloria jump in here. But the first thing I had to do was decide what the gap funding was that we were going to go to ask the community to fund. Right. But I'll get into the little details later. I want to hear why Gloria went to.
No, but that's amazing. It shows you that it's not a straight road always to crowdfunding. That, I mean, you certainly tried every avenue available in Canada.
Did, yeah.
And thank God that the US people came up with a movie that Canadians thought was
right.
Great.
Yeah.
Gloria, what was your journey in the why?
Yeah, so I also was very reluctant to do any kind of crowdfunding. It just, it's hard as a filmmaker, I think, to put yourself out there in that way and to ask for money in that way. But I had also been so what had happened was I had won the Women in the Director's Chair Feature Film Award, and that was a really wonderful award. And we got some cash from the Greenberg Fund, which was amazing, and then a whole bunch of sponsorship. But it wasn't really enough to make the film. And so I decided, because I had had success with the arts councils, to apply for the arts councils. And I also applied to Telefilm, and I got turned down. So I was like, oh, okay, well, so I got turned down. That's fine. You know, I just have to figure this out. Maybe make this a smaller film. I'll try again. I'll just apply to Telefilm again. And I applied a second time, and I got turned down a second time. And I thought, okay, all right, well, this means I have to just make this film, right? Like it's like you can't not make a film because you don't get all your funding. You just have to really, 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 like Sharon said, you just scale it down. You try to figure out what's realizable. And I had gotten a couple of Arts Council grants as well. So I had the Ontario and the Toronto, as well as the Greenberg money and the sponsorship. And I thought, this is totally doable, but I really, really need a little bit of extra cash, because like cash is king.
Yeah.
And also, it wasn't just the extra cash, it was just getting people interested in the film, you know, and wanting people to kind of know that I was making the film. And so I just thought, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm just going to get it out there. And, you know, for me, it was, I mean, I didn't hire anybody. It was me and my co-producer, Josh Barsky. We were the ones that were putting it together. And I actually chose to go with Kickstarter rather than Indiegogo. And at the time when I chose Kickstarter, there was a couple of reasons. One was that, you know, Kickstarter has a time frame, like it's like a time limit. There's a little bit of pressure. If you don't raise the amount of money that you say you're going to raise, you lose all your money, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And you know that it could be that could be a detraction for some people, but for me it was basically like, well, I'm going to camera, and this is the date I'm going to camera, and it's all in motion, and I've hired everybody, and I've started talking to Telefilm again and getting them interested again, right? And they were like, well, yeah, okay, we'd like to support you actually. And I thought, you know, the thing with Kickstarter was that my understanding was, and I think one of the people that I think it was my production manager, had just done like a Kickstarter campaign, and she was like, yeah, we had people, you know, people just found us, you know, strangers. And I was like, well, that's good. That'll help, because, you know, I'm not, you know, I don't have a bunch of rich relatives who can give me money. So the more strangers, the more people hear about this campaign, the better. And so we chose Kickstarter, and we put a time limit on, and we said, we're going to raise $15,000, and we're going to do it in 2 weeks, because we're literally going to be like going to camera. I think we were, I can't remember, by the time we had raised the money, a week out. So,
Oh, wow.
yeah.
You know, what's interesting is the two of you are saying, though, because you're talking about two separate platforms, and what would a filmmaker, you know, strategizing right now and planning, how do they look at these different platforms and figure out what's right for them?
Well, I think Indiegogo offers both of those things. It's a flex, which the flex fund is, if you don't make the amount of money you say you're going to make, then they charge 9%. If you do make the amount of money they said that you say that you're going to make, then they charge 4%. So that they offer those two sort of platforms. And I think for me, for Indiegogo, the other reason that we really push for that is they assigned us a personal advisor who we were able to talk to through the whole campaign and get specific instructions on how to better our campaign. So that also really, really helped us. And she was a woman of color. So she understood the project, she got the project, she was enthusiastic about the project.
Now, was that accidental, or did you get to choose?
That was accidental.
Wow.
Yeah. So we got really, really lucky. So she was really in there and really, really worked hard with us. The other thing is, we knew that we went for $40,000, which is a lot of money for an indie film for crowdfunding. We went for $30,000, and we knew secretly we were going for $40,000. But we went for 30, which is a lot. It's a lot. But what we did have was we had a property already. The movie was based on a book.
Mhm.
So it's based on Nalo Hopkinson's Brown Girl in the Ring sci-fi book. It's an award-winning book. So we got all of her supporters to help sort of tweet. And then because it's genre and it's sort of Black, I went and plugged into all these genre Black sci-fi communities, and we sort of were able to get those genre fans who are very loyal to Nalo. But the other thing we did, and this was the sort of secret sauce that the woman from Indiegogo told us, she was like, before you even start your campaign, whatever your goal is, so our goal was 30,000, get 10% of your funding in place before you even launch your campaign. So we went to family and friends, and I said to them, let's say it's Saturday at 4 p.m., we're going to launch. I need you at 4:01 p.m. to start donating, because once people see your campaign going up,
That's so smart. Yeah, get the excitement going.
Exactly. Because when they see, you know, when you see somebody like $100,000 and there's $2,000, people know that's a losing campaign. But if you go 30,000 and already within 5 days they're at 15,000, you're like, we're halfway there. We're halfway there. People want to jump on a winning train. So we got all of our funding, 10% of our funding in place. And then I strategized who would come on. So the Canadian Film Centre got excited, and I asked them to come on at a certain time. And we strategized in that way so that it kind of felt like people were joining this winning train. So that within 2 weeks, we were at 20,000, you know, and then we hit over the 30,000 and extended our campaign. And I just want to tell a little secret here. The other thing that we did was the perks that we offered, we made sure that those perks were not going to cost half the money that we were raising. So we made sure they were like shout outs or tweets or mentions in the movie, because when you do an indie film, your credits are often longer than the film. So, you know, we were like, that's okay. We'll put all the Indiegogo contributors in the film. We'll give you a producer credit or an associate producer credit at different levels. So those weren't things that cost us a lot of money and time to fulfill. And that's really important, because oftentimes I see crowdfunding and it's like, we're going to give you a gold embossed sweatshirt. And I'm like, that's going to cost $50. And then you're going to have to mail that out to the person in Texas who gave you $5 or whatever, you know? So.
And people don't care about the perks, because when you think about what, like when you've put out, I mean, I have supported different campaigns. I honestly don't care about the perks. I just want to help the person who's making the project, right? Like that's what makes me happy, right? Is to know that the person has realized their project, you know? And so same thing, we did the same thing. It was all about just mentions and, and, you know, putting your name in the credits and, you know, that kind of thing. Right.
You know what,
and the other
as you're talking, there's a great question here too that sort of wraps into what you're saying as well. What was the percentage of donors you knew versus strangers? Like, I think what she means by donors are people that you knew to people you'd never heard of. Was it a lot of your friends rallying around, or did you find there were a whole bunch of people you're like, I don't know who these people are?
I think as soon as you do any kind of equity investment, they always say go to family and friends first. Mm-hmm. So I would say 10% of the backers, so we had 338 backers, 10% of those backers were family and friends. And then they were friends and friends and friends of family. And the other thing we did was we got reviews in IndieWire and Shadow and Act. And so then that went out to strangers. So then I would say the bulk of the people we didn't know personally, but it all started with that core of people that we did know.
And Gloria, was that for you too?
Yeah, like for me, it was definitely, like I asked, you know, people who were close to me, I said, okay, I've just launched, please donate right now. I did the same thing. It's so funny, Sharon. And then I would literally every day mail out 150 people, you know, and just tell everybody this was going on, this was going on, this is going on. And for me, I think, you know, there were a bunch of friends, colleagues, but then also I got mentioned, you know, they had reviews as well. I think Women in Hollywood reviewed us. And so we got a lot of strangers as well, people who were just random people who were just interested and it struck a chord for them. And that was like a thing. And so what I kept doing was like on my social, every day I would post something new about the film. And with the permission of the actors that I was casting, I was using their audition tapes because I thought they were extraordinary and really wonderful. And so, we were just getting a ton of traction on the people watching the audition tapes and just getting interested in that and wanting to support because of that as well, because then they get a taste of the film, right? They actually get a taste of these actors and what's really going to happen. And
So didn't you feel like, Gloria, it was a community? Like I felt like we were growing a
What it
community.
sounds like.
Yeah.
Saying, hey, people donate to this film. We were letting people into a community because we did the same thing. We gave people insights and behind the scenes and, little tidbits into how the film was being made. And yeah. I felt like we were growing a community and we were saying, can you support this brown girl movement? That was our hashtag, like support all of these talent who's trying to bring this to the screen.
Now, neither one of you had ever done something like this before. This was new, correct?
Yeah.
So before the launch actually happened, what was the kind of preparation? Because I know it sounds like you were you were able to pivot as things were happening, but how did you prepare before the launch? Like, what were the things? It's great what you said, Sharon, and you, Gloria, about you got your friends and family and whatever, but was there like a laid out plan, a strategy before?
We had a laid out plan for the 40 days that we were going to run the campaign. So we had milestones, like on this day, we're going to introduce this person, like the Canadian Film Center. On this day, we're going to do an update that allows you to see behind the scenes on this date. Because one of the things that the Indiegogo campaign people were saying to us is people love updates. They want to know that the campaign's got power behind it and movement behind it, and they are getting insight because they're donors, they're investors, right? They're investors into your film. So they want to, and they're not doing it because they're going to get money. They're doing it because they want access and support. So that's what was really important, was to make sure that you have those milestones with the updates. And making sure that you keep posting those updates on the Indiegogo campaign. Did you feel the same way, Gloria?
Yeah, like for me, I think because I was right deep in pre-production, and it was, for me, I just knew that I did not, we have such a short shooting season in Canada, and I just knew that I did not want to go another year before I would have to shoot. And so I just set a goal for the end of October, and then I just raced towards that goal. And I researched, I read up on like very successful campaigns. I wanted to see what they were doing. I watched a bunch of videos because I thought, it's important what you present to the world as well. And I realized that a big part of what I was doing, because Queen of the Morning Calm is about like survivors of violence, and it's about sex workers, I really wanted to present as honest and authentic a voice and story as I possibly could. And I wanted to connect it back to my own surviving of violence. And I wanted to be able to do that without apology, because I think that's hard. I think it's hard in our industry to stand up to that message and to basically say, yes, I am a survivor of violence. This has happened to me, and I think this has impact on women, and I wanna help change things. So
I think that would have made a big difference too, because people are not just investing in your film, in your project. They were investing in, especially in you. And Sharon, your project was a passion project too, but I think people are also really investing in the two of you individually, and what you're bringing to the story, your personal experiences, and that's key as well.
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, I think it's interesting because, we're in this world of, post Me Too, and a lot of people have come out and they've spoken about their stories. And I think that's really wonderful. And I guess I just wanted to continue to be part of that wave, but in a way that was healing for other survivors, because that's a big part of the reason why I made the film, was because I wanted to help other survivors, to let them know that they're not alone. And So that was like really a huge part of kind of what I chose to do and how I chose to approach the messaging that I had in my campaign. And
Well, it
then
really sounds, from what both of you were saying, it sounds like the social media aspect is a huge part of it. And so one of the questions was that they don't do a lot of social media, stuff. Is it even possible? It doesn't sound like it is. Is it possible to do a crowdfunding without attaching?
No,
You literally hired a social media person, Sharon, like to deal
I
with
hired
it.
a social media manager, and what I negotiated with her is that she would get a percentage of what was raised because I didn't have money up front. So there was an incentive there for her to work really, really hard and to take a percentage of what was raised. So because I knew, even with me tweeting every day and doing it every day, I knew that I needed somebody who at 4 o'clock was going to release this post, at 4:20 was going to send a publicity outreach to somebody else. Like I knew that it was honestly, for a month, it was like being in production. It was 24/7. We were going 24/7. So I think if you're not on social media, that's a model you could use, is to give them a percentage of the money raised. But you are still going to have to, if you're the filmmaker, you're still going to have to put yourself out there in the sense of people want a face and they want to know who they're investing in. Like you said, they're investing in the talent and the people. It's not an equity investment to make money back.
yeah.
Or nobody's really doing it because they're going to get a T-shirt or a,
Yeah. And you have to be the voice. You have to stand up for your project. You can't rely on someone else to be the voice for you. I think as filmmakers, that's a part of what we're doing, is we're expressing our voice and our identity. So I do think that particularly in crowdfunding, that is really key.
Do you have to think about privacy concerns in crowdfunding?
I mean, it depends on what you mean by privacy concerns. I think that, you choose what you want to share, you choose what you want to say, and you choose what feels safe for you, I think. But I don't know if that's what you meant by privacy concerns.
people donate.
Yeah, that was one of the questions. So I wasn't clear myself.
When people donate and you respond, they don't get your private email or private information.
Right.
So
You
it
do
all goes through the platform. So it's fairly secure when it's going through the platform. And the same thing with the payment and all of that. There's enough of this. It's no more dangerous than being on social media.
I think they were tying it to social media. I think they thought even that. Yeah.
Well, I think if how you feel about social media is probably how you'll feel about doing a crowdfunding campaign. And I just wanted to say, I know not all filmmakers are, say maybe as vocal as Gloria and I are, but I do think there are alternatives, like to hire somebody or to get, maybe there's a lead actor who really wants to get involved in it, and put them front and center, because I have seen successful campaigns where the filmmakers aren't necessarily the ones who are up front, but a lead actor is, or a producer is, or somebody else who feels comfortable on social media.
Yeah, but there has to be a voice. There has to be like a central message. There has to be a central voice. There has to be a presence.
And that's the thing is, I feel like, just like in social media, the most successful social media campaigns have a message. You're not usually supporting just that person. You're usually supporting a movement or a message or a point of view. And I think all our updates and all our social media support around that wasn't necessarily like, support our great film, support our great film. It was about the themes, and it was about Afrofuturism, and it was about this being the first Caribbean feature film in Canada. Like, support this kind of movement that's happening.
No, that's great. And you kind of answered this next question. I kind of know it, but I'm going to say it anyway. It's really about the work effort, the amount of work you guys put into just the crowdfunding to run the campaign, with the money you ended up with. I mean, are there other benefits either than raising money that come from crowdfunding campaigns? So other than the money, what were the other benefits? I feel like you were connecting to an audience already.
Oh yeah, that's such a great question, because we were really cognizant of the people who were going to support the crowdfunding campaign were going to support the movie. So we asked right up front, can we give you, can we take your name on a mailing list? Can we use your social media to help? Will you help us support and spread the word when it was time for the film? And so I feel like crowdfunding wasn't just the money, it then became a marketing tool. And
Mhm.
they became our influencers on social media when we launched the film. So it was a huge, huge, huge help, because we had 330 people, and then imagine all the people that they knew, and then
Right.
the contacts that they had. So I would say when we launched the film, we had probably about 1,000 core supporters out there helping us promote the film. And you can't buy that.
No.
Like, you can't buy that specific demographic supporting you.
And
Yeah.
Gloria, for you?
Well, I was just agreeing, and you know, for me, I remember just getting all the buzz around Sharon's campaign and just being like, "Wow, that's so awesome!" Like Sharon was actually an inspiration for me, and just made me feel like, okay, I gotta just try, because I really didn't want to do it.
I hear you. I hear you.
Now,
It was a great marketing thing, right? Like you ended up with all these supporters.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
What about,
Right.
did you send tax receipts? How, or does that work on crowdfunding or no?
No, it's not, no, because we're not a charitable organization, and we're not
Right.
a not-for-profit organization. So people really do it because they want to get involved in it. What we would do is if there was, I think there was one person who donated 5,000 and above, and we gave them an executive producer credit, and she wanted to donate some more money. So we did it not through Indiegogo, and she went through a charitable organization, and you know, that kind of stuff. But that wasn't part of the 40,000.
These are some great questions, by the way, that are coming in. Thank you guys for keeping this up. One of them now, Gloria, maybe to you. Did you factor in the Kickstarter Indiegogo service fees? As you know, like that part out as to the end result of the funding that you needed to get?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think that you always kind of want to raise just a little bit more than your goal, because what you want to be able to take away is the amount that you say you're going to raise. So I said 15. I knew I was going to raise a little bit more, and I did. So that was good. Yeah.
No, that's good. You know, someone here is asking, how do we find your campaign? So these campaigns are finished, but how people would normally find them is they need to be on your social media. Like they need to.
I think they're still up on the platforms. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, guys. Keep sending the money. Keep sending the money.
If you go to Indiegogo and look up Brown Girl Begins, you'll see that campaign.
Yeah,
Okay.
because like what I did was
obviously.
and I would look at people's past campaigns just to see what other people were doing, so that I had an idea, because I literally had no idea when I started. I was just like, I think I should do this. You know, I've seen how awesome Sharon's campaign is, so I should try this.
Now, I don't understand this question really, but it said people reviewed your campaign even though the film wasn't made. Oh, I get it. I don't know how they review that, but did you have a trailer in place, they're asking?
We did.
Yeah, to do a video.
Yeah. They sort of recommend that you do a kind of trailer video speaking to the audience, like that there's a visual reference as to what the film is and what it's about. Those are sort of the three things, like who are you, what is the film about, and what are you specifically asking money for? Because some campaigns are, I've done the film and this is for post-production. For us specifically, we had got Arts Council grants, and Canada Council wouldn't give us the rest of our money unless we raised a certain amount of money. So our campaign was specific to that. I was like, please don't let me have to give Canada Council their money back. I need this much money to raise. And ours was really specific to that. Like, or I can't shoot the film.
And for you, Gloria?
Yeah. What my messaging was more around, you know, let's help our women and girls. Let's, you know,
Did you have a trailer on there?
Yeah. I knew I had to do it. You know, I prepared it. I rehearsed it. You know, I had an editor edit it. I used visuals. You know, you put it all together. You just have to think of it as its own little film, really.
You know, I was talking to a filmmaker just this week, and they were uncomfortable. The film had been made and they're planning a release next year. They don't really have the money for a release. And I say, you should try this. And they were like, I feel embarrassed. And because usually you should only ask if you're making your film. And, you know, encourage those people that have made their films. Because as you said, you're still keeping yours up. A film needs money all the time.
Well, our campaigns are closed, so we're not for
But
money
you
now.
can see something if
But
you,
you can go back and reference it. And Indiegogo and Kickstarter, they close. You have to give them a close date.
right.
Yeah, so you don't just
I get
keep.
it. But you could start a whole marketing, a completely different one that's about marketing the film.
Yeah, like if he
Totally.
wanted to, or he or she wanted to raise money to launch it, you know, I think you just have to do it. Everybody feels embarrassed, right? Like, back me up, right, Sharon? Like, I felt
It's the last thing you want to do.
embarrassed. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yes, I don't know if you felt this way, but it felt empowering to be able to fund the film and on my own without asking and going and asking those institutions that had already said no. It really felt empowering. I was like, I can do this. Like, I'm going to do this regardless of whether you say yes or no. And then to get all that community support, that felt empowering. So that took the shame away, because I started to go, yeah, this project is worth it and it needs to be out there. And look at all these people who want to see it. I think it's an empowering tool. And I think it's an especially empowering tool for racialized communities who do not get access in the same way. So not that we should be forced to crowdfund, but definitely we should not take no as a reason to not do our film.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think that it's so important to, I mean, particularly when you're trying to tell your own story, and we're trying to tell stories that aren't, you know, necessarily in the mainstream, that the mainstream really hasn't caught on yet, that our stories are important. You can't allow that to stop you. You have to make your work. You can't be like, well, I didn't raise $1 million or $2 million or $5 million, so I can't make this film. That's like, I mean, you just have to scale it down. What is the film really about? Just bare essentials. Who are the most important characters? And, you know, just go from there and raise the money, raise awareness, you know, get yourself out there. It is uncomfortable, but Sharon's absolutely right. As soon as you start doing that, you start to really feel that, you know, we have options, and you have to feel that way, I think.
And then it was
No,
so
you guys,
institutions
sorry,
jump
Sharon,
in.
yeah, go.
Sorry.
Yeah.
And it was so delicious to see institutions go, oh, cool. Oh, wait, Gloria's doing, oh, well, maybe we should, right? Like,
Well,
that
actually, that's what I was just going to talk about. I was, you know, it must be a good feeling. You go to these institutions, they're saying your film, the audience is not ready for, or whatever. And you're right, you're Black and Indigenous and Asian and South Asian. Those community of Canadian filmmakers find it very hard in the institutions to convince them to give them that money. And the fact that you could go out, get that money yourself, make the film, and then the film be such a success. Because you guys haven't just been opening at festivals and winning awards, you know, a lot of people came out and saw your films. And I think that's the best proof to a lot of the institutions that you may not understand the audience of that we serve.
Totally. And I think telefilm came on for post and for marketing. Like, after they saw the film, they came on for, and I think after they saw the amount of people in communities that were supportive, they came on.
Yeah. And telefilm came on for me as well, but they came on like in production. So we were able to actually, we were actually able to shoot more days and do a bunch more stuff that I'm so grateful that we had that opportunity.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Now, did you study other people's crowdfunding campaigns?
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Yep.
Yeah.
People you knew, or just you went on these platforms and just sort of searched?
I just Googled most successful crowdfunding campaigns, because I figured somebody's writing about it, you know, so I might as well look it up. I might as well see what's out there and what's curated. And that's how I did my research. So.
And I would say, if you're thinking about starting a crowdfunding campaign, there's 3 things to really look at. What is realistic given the crowd that you know and the people that you know? How much money can you raise? Because the thing that will kill your campaign the most is if you set this unrealistic goal of $1 million or $750,000 and people see that you've raised 20,000 or 2,000 or whatever.
Right.
Really set a realistic goal. And then I think the second thing is to look at campaigns, because I looked at campaigns that were specifically indie films, you know, that were in production, trying to raise money for production, because marketing and post-production, those are whole different, like, then they actually had footage from the film. I didn't have any footage from my film.
Right.
I hadn't shot anything yet. And then I think the third thing is really how much work are you willing to put into it, and getting all of that lined up. I mean, those
Yeah,
are
I'm tired. I'm just tired listening to you two.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work. Now, how did you, Sharon, this question's for you, came in. How did you find that social media person? Like, where did you look?
Yeah, I actually put an ad out. I put an ad, I think it was like on Facebook. I need and if you can imagine in this was 2014, 15, nobody had even heard that word, right? Like nobody, like I was like, I need a social media crowdfunding manager.
Hey, well, give her a shout out, because there are people going, what's her name? What's her name?
Yeah. I don't think she does it anymore.
Oh, of course, because she's exhausted.
Tired. Yeah, she's exhausted. Yeah. But I think now it's much easier, because there are social media campaign people, there are social media managers, there are, you know, but she happened to be go ahead, Gloria.
Impact producers. I have an impact producer now. My impact producer is Daniel Northway Frank, and he works with Cool World, and he actually tracks all the data. He tracks all the people who click and can tell you what all the demographics are. I mean, it's a whole other level of.
Remember the old days when a filmmaker just came up with a great story and just now you have to actually know how to make the TV set and make the.
Yeah.
But I think we have more power now in a weird way as filmmakers because of social media, because, you know, we're here in Canada. We don't have huge marketing budgets. We can't buy ads. We can't buy billboards. Like, that's prohibitively expensive. And what we're doing is we're going out, you know, in our social media, we're buying these really little ads that are very, very cost effective, you know, and we're able to track where it goes and who's clicking, not who specifically, but the type of person that's clicking,
Right.
you know, and how many people they're clicking. And so you're able to kind of be more in control of that, and you're able to be more able to target where you want to buy your ads, for example, versus, you know, you have to be a studio, you have to spend $1 million, you have to spend $20 million, $30 million for people to see your film. You know, I mean, we're doing indie films. We're not getting those kinds of audiences that a tentpole film would get, but we're getting audiences, you know, which is great. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah.
You'll hire your impact producer, Gloria? Like,
he's amazing. His name is Daniel Northway Frank. And I believe his website is Northway Frank Consulting. And he's phenomenal. I would highly recommend him.
and does he get paid a percentage from the film? Is that how it?
I have applied for marketing money from Telefilm. So it hasn't all gone through yet, but knock wood. But I'm sure he would have a conversation. So
you got to negotiate these things separately, individually. But, you know, one of my questions, and I see a few people are asking it too, is tax credits. Talk about that. How does that work with this?
Oh boy.
Yeah, we were talking about this before, right, Gloria? Like, it was such a huge surprise to me. With grants and with crowdfunding, it claws back your tax credit. So when I put my financing plan together, I had grants, I had crowdfunding, and I had tax credits. So that was my financing plan. And when I went to vendors, I was like, you know, here's my financing plan. Can you defer your charges on post-production until I get my tax credits in? So then after we did the film, that is when I realized that crowdfunding, that money, any kind of donations, any kind of money that's a donation, same with Arts Council grants, will claw back any tax credits. So we didn't end up getting tax credits because the amount of money it would have cost us to apply for tax credits would have eaten into the tax credits. So we didn't do tax credits. So I would say take the tax credits out of your financing plan if the majority of your funding is grants and donations.
Yeah, same with me. When we were, you know, we knew. I mean, my exec producer Sonia Di Rienzo knew that going in because of the grants that it was gonna grind. I mean, my lawyer was like, it's gonna grind. And then we talked to a couple people, accountants, and they were like, well, you know, you'll maybe get $7,000 back, but it'll cost you $7,000. So we chose not to
Right.
do tax credits.
And just give us an idea, what were these donations like? Do you find that, did you have a few people that said, here's $1,000, or was it a lot of $5 and $20?
Mine ranged. Like
Were you Bernie Sanders?
yeah, mine were like, I had some just different organizations that would just donate small amounts of money. And so it would be like $1.21. And then, I mean, for me, the most I got was $500. But, you know, I was able to cobble together what I needed. So, yeah. And I was super grateful for every penny. It didn't matter to me whether it was $1 or 500. It was like, I knew that that all made a difference.
Yeah, I was inspired by the Obama campaign. Remember when he was like $5?
Yeah.
And I felt the same way. I was like, $5? That would be great. That's better than zero.
1 million people giving $1 is great.
Oh, yes. And then that's also, look at all those people. Like, you also want money, but you want a lot of backers. You want that number of backers to grow so that you can see that there's a lot of people in support of that project. I did have a couple of key big donors in place in the first week. So one was 5,000 and one was, I think, 2,000.
Wow.
I knew that if they sort of donated right up front, that it would help the campaign kind of.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. Now, someone had asked, would you use could you keep the same campaign going? But I think you answered that because you said you have to stop whatever the original campaign was. You'd have to redo a different campaign if it was for post-production or for something different, correct?
You can keep the same campaign. I just personally was exhausted and done. You could keep it going for years and years if you want, but you have to have a certain amount of updates. You have to have a certain amount of money that's coming in. Like Indiegogo won't just let you sit. I don't know for Kickstarter, but Indiegogo doesn't let it just sit there for 20 years. And
no, so you actually have to keep working at it, like however long. And I'm sure, you have to get on with your life and make the film.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I wanted to, if there's another question.
No, go ahead.
I just wanted to say one of the things that came out of the Indiegogo campaign that was a real treat for us was people wanted to have like walk-on parts. And so we offered a walk-on part for a certain amount of money because again, that wasn't really going to cost us anything. There was a scene that I needed to do, and I knew Actual would allow me to have a certain amount of non-union actors in it. But what happened is they came to me outside of Indiegogo and paid to get onto the film. So they wanted to do it outside of Indiegogo. They wanted to be anonymous. They didn't want to, and so the reason I'm sharing that is because in the whole, perks that you offer, that was one of our hopes, was that we would be able to give people of color, Black actors in particular, some kind of entree into the film. So on the film, on the perks, there was sort of a lower number if you just wanted like a walk-on or whatever, but if you wanted, or a background, but if you wanted like a speaking role, that came outside. But we were hoping that also, I just wanted a whole bunch of Black people on my set.
Right.
That, smart. That vibe and that feel, yeah.
And Gloria, what did you have perks?
I did. I mean, I remember speaking to one person this was hilarious. I chose not to go this way. Who there were a number of, this is so funny. This is what happens when you start looking for money.
I don't even know what it is.
There was a group of people. There were these grandparents who would give big donations to like have a bit part in your film so they could show their grandchildren.
Yeah.
It was like,
why not?
Sex worker, we're shooting at Fillmore, so I wondered where they would fit in and how the grandchildren would react. So I chose not to go down that route myself, but but I think that's wonderful that Sharon did that. I think that sounds like,
yeah, I mean, our film fit that. We didn't have any trade workers.
Okay, so from this experience, I need to know this now. Would you do this again? Are you thinking of crowdfunding for your next film? Or I think at this point, you do have the leverage now to get that you might not need to crowdfund.
I think, I mean, so the thriller series project, it's actually not my project, it's Samora Smallwood's project. She's the creator and the writer. And so like for her, I think, yes, we would crowdfund because she's the central figure. And we would be activating her fans and her supporters. So yes, in that sense, I would. And for next projects, it is funny. I don't know how you feel about this, Sharon, but it does feel like crowdfunding is kind of mostly for your first or like one particular big push in your career. You know, I did read Spike Lee's crowdfunding campaign, and I was moved by that, and very frustrated that Spike Lee can't raise money. You know what I mean?
But clearly he didn't hire some of the people you guys
did. Yeah. But it is depressing when you think about it, that Spike Lee has to go outside of the system to still try and raise money for projects that he knows the system just won't support.
And he is, you know, a legend, right? He's an notorious.
Yeah.
So it is a little disheartening, but you know.
Yeah, I would say that I wouldn't do it again right now.
I love the way you said it too. I wouldn't do it again.
But I think that there are particular projects that it does give you freedom around. So if there's a project that I was doing that I really didn't want to have any input from institutions or any kind of shaping in that way, I may think about it. I may think in terms of doing it that way. I think for me, and you might have felt the same way, like I've done this for 15 years trying to pitch this project, and I was like, I'm making it. So whether you say yes or no, I'm making it. And my hope is that the next project is easier and the next project is easier, but I may find myself in a Spike Lee situation where there's particular content where I go, they're not going to do this, or they're, you know, the compromise is needed to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, and so never say never. I would agree with you here, Sharon.
But I
love that. Okay, so biggest mistake. These are the takeaways now. Biggest mistake that a filmmaker can make in crowdfunding.
For me, the biggest mistake was one of the perks that we had was offering a home cooked dinner. And I don't cook, so it was my partner, and it was like curry chicken and blah blah blah, and we'll come to your house and we'll set it up. Well, like, what was I thinking? Like, the amount of work around that and the amount of organizing around that, and you know, so that was a perk. Do not do that. Like, that was exactly the thing not to do. But I don't know if this happened to you, Gloria, but I was sort of towards the end of the campaign, we were maybe $5,000 away, and we added new perks. That was one of the perks. Like, I was like, this will get them Caribbean, and it did. And then we had to go and do it, and that was tough. That was
so that was like the sleep deprived perks.
Don't get panicked and don't offer a perk that you can't fulfill without it costing a lot on your part.
And I think also, Sharon, because you had a long campaign, right? Like, you had to add a little juice, right? So it made sense, right? You know, and you had to do it. Whereas mine was a really short campaign. Mine was just like, boom, boom, every day, just bugging people. And being like, we read this one, guys, you know? So I don't know. Like, I mean, I felt, in terms of mistakes, I mean, I would agree with the don't give out unrealistic perks, because like I said, people don't really care about the perks. And I mean, I think that a big mistake would be not updating people. I think you have to update people. I think you have to get people excited. I think you have to, I mean, for me, because mine was 2 weeks, it was an everyday update. It was just like boom, 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 boom. But I think you have to keep it regular. If you're doing like a 40-day campaign like Sharon did, you know, I don't know what your time spacing was. It was probably more urgent towards the end.
Yeah.
But I think that if you don't communicate, you're not going to raise the money. Like, I think that if you don't, I've seen people reach out and ask for donations, and then I never hear from them again. Totally. Right. And then you're just like, what happened to that campaign? Right. Because it's like, if it's not top of mind. Like I remember having a meeting with a creative director at Saatchi and Saatchi because he had done one for his son, and he was like, Gloria, don't be shy, just bug people, harass people. And I was like, okay.
But it's hard now. You consider that a lot of people are crowdfunding now. Like, how do you stand, it's hard how you stand out because now there's such a crowd. But I think some of the things that you said today, which were wonderful, where you really built it from first the people we know, then get the people we know to, and you just hope the people haven't been asked to do 1,000 crowdfunding campaigns.
And I also think it helps in your marketing again, because in that who is supporting you is probably, excuse me, the demographic that wants to come and see your film. So for us, as we started doing it, we really started going, oh, our demographic is young Black women. They tend to live in a city. They, and not just in Canada, across the world. So when we went to our distributor, we could say, like, look at this analysis on Facebook, look at this on our social media. This is who our demographic is. And they live in the States and they live here. It helped us with data to then, and even to go to Telefilm and go, look at how many people supported this around the world. Mm-hmm. So I think that it's a really good marketing tool. Like, it really is helpful. And I think it then gives you ammunition to go to the institutions and go, I know you're saying nobody cares, but look.
Yeah, all these people do.
Yeah, all these people care. And even if it's not, and I found our campaign sometimes more successful than these small white films that Telefilm or another institution had supported. And I took them as comparisons. Like, I was like, you put money in this and they only were able to get this many people and we don't have money, and we've been able to do this. So unfortunately, I think as people of color, we're constantly having to go, really, people like our story, really?
Yeah, and convincing people.
Yeah, yeah.
And Gloria, for you?
Sorry, what was the question again?
What was the question? No.
Yeah, takeaway. You were
just got so sucked into
your story. We were just lost in Sharon for a moment there.
Like a takeaway. I think you just have to be persistent. I think it's persistence and believing in yourself and believing in your message and just articulating what it is that you're doing, right? Like articulating it around what is the movement, right? Like Sharon's was the brown girl movement, mine was like, let's help survivors. Let's help, women rise up above violence. And I think that's so key, right? It's so key to like tap into those people who are not your friends. And supporters who are just, like I had a really lovely man from Texas who was a social worker support. And I was like, and what I did was, this was the other thing that I did was I emailed everyone personally to say thank you after I got each donation, right? So as they were coming in, I was saying thank you, and they would tell me a little bit about themselves or what have you. And it was really wonderful, right? Like you really get a taste of how passionate people are about your message. So
no, I love that you just said that, because one of the questions that came in is, what about a platform like MailChimp and getting things out, and is there fatigue? But I think if you're going to get something from this, all the people that are listening, is these two amazing women started from a very personal place to the people they knew, because you're right, there could be fatigue if you're just throwing it out like spaghetti to everyone. But I think part of your clear strategy was, let's start with family and friends, and they get their family and friends, and so on and so forth.
And authenticity, right?
Yes.
And like,
yes, that
Sharon,
is so key. Oh my gosh, that is so key. Yeah. And that not every update is about give us money, like that your updates are sincere and authentic and saying, hey, so-and-so from, Alaska just supported this film and we want to give them a shout out because, they're alone in that community, blah, blah, blah. Like really making sure that you're telling other people's stories, and not every update is like, give us money, give us money. Because Gloria, I did the same thing, and it was beautiful to email each person who donated and to try and let them know that they're now part of this brown girl community. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That is I love that. I have to tell you guys, because some of these comments are just so lovely. May I say kudos to the brilliant webinar. Finally, a true conversation with panelists, host and audience, very informative. So this is great. We're getting some
Great.
really positive response. So I'll frame those for you later.
That's awesome.
You can put
I
them
know
up.
we're running out of time, but can I tell a quick story, Tonya? It's
Yeah.
really quick. So I just wanted to say what Gloria said. I just wanted to build on that. This whole idea of putting yourself out there and how hard it is. And I think especially as women and as women of color and as BIPOC filmmakers, we feel apologetic about putting our work out there. And it's so important to go, our work is just as worthy and just as interesting. And years ago, Tonya and I went and did this workshop at York University, and it was for Black, I think it was filmmakers or Black artists. And I remember we were looking out, and Tonya said, and this was maybe a room full of 50 Black filmmakers, and she said, to everybody out here, here is my personal phone number. I want you to call me because I want to be of help to you. And I was looking at her like, she's crazy.
I am crazy.
Yeah, she's so she did this, and at the end of the thing, and we're walking out, and she turned to me and she goes, no one's gonna call. And I was like, what? And she was like, no one's gonna call, Sharon.
Yeah.
She said, if this was in America, she's like, I would never do it, because they would call and like it would be crazy, and they'd be like, oh, you need to meet me, and like it would just be nuts. She said, nobody's going to call. So my call out to people here is look at the resource here, look at the help here. Don't be shy, don't stand back, forget the don't. Do stand out, do shine, do come forward.
Yeah.
Because both Gloria and I had to overcome that kind of thing and go, no, our stuff is worth it. And I'll never forget that time.
Oh, I'm glad you shared that story that I don't remember, but I'm glad you shared it.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I think one of the things that you have to know as BIPOC filmmakers, as women filmmakers, is that we're changing the world with our stories. We really, really, really are. Like, as shy as you may feel, as much as you may want to hide, as much as you may have been told that you're not important, when we put our stories out there, we actually change the fabric, we change the conversation, we change the dialogue, and we create room, right? The more we are out there, the more room there is for all of us. That's what I believe, right? So you have to come from that place. That's how you overcome your, oh no, please don't look at me.
No, you're both so right. This has been absolutely fantastic. And I'll do a shameless plug here for Real World, which is we have something now called Real World Access Real World, www.accessrealworld.ca, which is a national database. We just launched it this week. Every one of you filmmakers that are on here listening, we want you to go to the website. We want you to sign up, because one of the best ways that we can create more work for each other is if we know where each other are. So and by the way, it's only for Canadians, just in case anyone out of Canada is listening in on this. But this was fantastic. You guys were just so clear and concise, and I love the fact you can see why you guys were a success, because you put a lot of thought. It was smart, you strategized well, and you executed a really flawless crowdfunding. So thank you so much for being here and sharing with us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Thanks for everybody who attended the webinar.
Thanks, guys.
Good energy and good crowdfunding and lots of money. Yeah. And I just want to say, accessrealworld.ca, is that it?
Yes.
Accessrealworld.ca. That's fantastic, because I don't know if for you, Gloria, but people are always calling and going, do you know any BIPOC blah, blah, blah? Do you know any BIPOC da, 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 da? And it would be great to have one directory to send them to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Woo! Yeah.
See you all next time. Thank you.
Thank you.